So I'd like to say a very big welcome to those of you who've joined us for our 19th edition of News from the Lab. So this is an event which gives members of the alumni network privileged access and insights into the diverse and exciting work that's happening at CERN. So thanks to all of you for joining us. Now, today we're thrilled to shine a spotlight on the Open Quantum Institute, also known as OQI. And we're delighted to welcome back a CERN alumnus who's very familiar with OQI himself, and he's going to be moderating the event. So it's our moderator today is Dr. Pavel Gora. Now, he's a scientist, an entrepreneur, an advisor, and a philanthropist, and former summer student. So he was a summer student in 2012, and he even won the 2012 Football World Cup at CERN. As well as that, he founded and is the CEO of Quantum AI Foundation, a non-profit organization that supports education and research in new technologies, particularly in AI and quantum computing. And he's also the chairperson of the board of QWorld, which is an international non-profit organization that supports education and research in quantum technologies and also contributes to the open global ecosystem for quantum technologies. Pavel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for inviting me and giving this opportunity to moderate the session today. But our star today is Alex Bernasconi. So I will soon give the Zoom to Alex, but maybe just I'll give a few words of introduction. So Alex is currently the applications project manager at the Open Quantum Institute. She's a Master of Science in Interdisciplinary Science from ETH Zurich. And she's passionate about bridging science and human impact, which aligns with OQI mission, of course. And just to let you know, this talk will last about 40 minutes, and later there will be a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to post your questions on the chat, and maybe during the Q&A session, we'll also allow to unmute and ask questions personally. So Alex, the Zoom is yours, and I wish everyone a great session. I hope you will enjoy.
Thank you very, very much, Pavel, for this kind introduction. I'm going to talk today about the Open Quantum Institute. As Rachel just said, we call it the OQI. I'm going to talk a bit about the history of it and also what we're doing here and how we do it. And before we discuss how we do it and what we do, I'd like to explain where we come from and how it comes that I can talk today to you about the Open Quantum Institute. So to understand this, we need to look a bit closer at the Genevan Science and Diplomacy Anticipator Foundation, the CESTA in short. So CESTA is located here in Geneva, and they publish every year the Science Breakthrough Radar. In this Breakthrough Radar, they identify emerging technologies and research that will have significant impact on how we as humans live together on this planet. And I really recommend you to go onto the radar and have a look at it. They look into very different technologies, and they anticipate where the technology will be in 5 years, in 10 years, and in 25 years. So they actually published their first radar 5 years ago. So you can already go and see what they said 5 years ago, where the technology will be today. You find it on the CESTA website. And around 5 years ago, they identified one of the most emerging and revolutionary technologies that will impact us as humanity. And they identified this to be quantum computing. So CESTA asked themselves one question, like, how can we ensure that quantum computing revolutionize our society in a way that's beneficial to all of humanity, but also our planet. And how do we ensure it's not only a few big tech companies that can benefit from quantum computing, but the broad society and our environment? So what they identified was that it's important to ensure equitable access to technology. And for that, there are two things that need to happen. So first of all, science and research, they need to keep from a very early phase in the development, they need to keep the sustainable development in mind. And second, policymakers need to anticipate the impact of the technology, and they need to have very early conversations around the question, how will our society receive this new technology? And they wanted to make sure these 2 points are addressed appropriately. And for that, they developed an instrument, GOQI. And how this development happened, that's what I'm going to explain you now. So in the early 2020, they had a lot of conversations with scientists, policymakers, and experts from industry. And together with all of them included, Chesta shaped an initiative that would ensure that a conversation between policymakers happens and that quantum computing develops for the benefit of all. So during 2 years, Chesta developed and designed the OQI from 2020 to 2022. And then afterwards, it incubated it for another year. During that incubation phase, they continued to hold these conversations, and they tried out first initiatives that will then later become the different working packages we're working on now, and I'll explain you a bit later. During that incubation phase, they also ensured funding for the Open Quantum Institute, and they found in UBS a partner that funds us for 3 years now. So everything was set and ready, and in March 2024, OQI got then officially launched here at CERN. And we got sent into this 3-year pilot phase, where I will tell you a bit more what we're doing later. And after that pilot phase, we will be evaluated to make sure the work we do is most impactful towards global and equitable access to quantum computing. So how did we end up here at CERN? During the incubation phase, Chesta was looking for a host, and CERN is, for many reasons, a very ideal environment to host the OQI. So CERN has a very long history of building large and equitable science collaboration. They're a big and trusted institution. CERN also has a lot of experience in bridging science and diplomacy. That, for example, happens within our pillar of education and training, but it also happens in technology and innovation, and it happens in research and collaboration. So CERN is very much aligned as well with the UN Sustainable Development Goal. So it has this benefit for humanity always in their head. For example, we work on knowledge transfer in the health sector, so that's SDG 3. But CERN also has summer schools and other initiatives. where CERN works on education, which is SDG 4. And CERN works on partnerships, energy, gender equality, and so many different sustainable development goals. And last but not least, CERN has deeply engraved in its philosophy the idea of open access and transparency. Every result at CERN should be open and accessible. So this all makes it a great environment to host an institution that focuses on open and equitable access to quantum computing. And last but not least, at CERN, so within the IT department, there's the Quantum Technology Initiative. They are looking on how can quantum technologies be used for high energy physics. And OQI today is seen as the societal arm of the QTI, the Quantum Technology Initiative. Okay, so now I've explained you a bit where we come from. And in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to explain you what we do in this 3-year pilot phase. And how do we ensure that we are this collaborative platform that supports the development of quantum computing for the benefit of all. We have set ourselves a very ambitious goal. And I think for such an ambitious goal, you need a strong strategy. And above of all, OQI is a place where different perspectives meet and diverse experts get to collaborate. And in particularly, we're doing this by the following things. So we are broadening the access to quantum computers and simulators through partnerships with industry providers. So they donate capacities on their quantum processors, and we can redistribute to, for example, quantum underserved geographies. This happens either through the development of quantum use cases or in our educational activities. We also bring together quantum scientists, subject matter experts, and SDG owners, for example, UN organizations, large NGOs, and the diplomatic community. Together, we explore the potential of quantum computing for society and the planet. And we're establishing educational consortium to develop capacity building tools. And this way, we're broadening the opportunity for everyone around the world to contribute to the advancement of quantum computing. So from this strategy, we developed 4 main objectives we're working currently on. And these activities are listed here. So we are working on quantum computing use cases for humanity, so applications of quantum computing. We are in our second work package, we are working with industry on collaborations to ensure that access is equitable and broad. And we work in our A3 pillar on advancing capacity building. And last but not least, we work in our 4th work pillar on quantum diplomacy, making sure policymakers keep having the discussion around quantum computing and potential implications on our society. So in the coming minutes, I'll go a bit more into depth of each of them. So at OQI, as Pavel introduced myself before, my position is to manage the different use cases that we develop. And I think they can give a good understanding of what we're trying to do at OQI. And I will focus a bit deeper into the use cases for the next minutes. So in today's industry, we have many quantum computing companies, but also research institutes, and all of them are trying to explore ways to profit from quantum computing or from quantum computers. And at OQI, we think that this early stage of a technology is a very crucial phase. And we try to exactly influence this early stage in the development of the technology. Together with our community, our members, our partners, we develop applications of quantum computing that serve humanity. And to understand what serves humanity, we're not like reinventing the wheel, but we're orienting ourselves on the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals that they have published. So we try to find quantum computing use cases for the SDGs. So quantum computing is in its very early stage. And in that early stage, it is important to make sure we bring in a broad perspective on the development of use case. If we have this broad perspective, we can ensure that the different use cases we have, our portfolio is very resilient to whatever challenge may face or developments may come in the future, be it technological or political. And this diversity we ensure in 3 different areas. So we have defined in our framework 4 different quantum approaches where we say this is how today's quantum computing algorithms are categorized in. So optimization, quantum simulation, machine learning, quantum machine learning, and linear systems of equation. And we try to keep the balance between the different quantum approaches. We also keep the balance between the different sustainable development goals they're tackling. Some of them are naturally much more logical to approach, like good health and water. Exactly. And we also keep sure that the problem owners and the experts we're working with come from a very diverse background. So before I now go into giving you some examples from our use cases, I like to explain you how we develop them. So use cases, they usually come from our OQI community. And in our community, we have quantum computing experts, we have domain experts, and we have experts on impact and the sustainable development goals from UN organizations. So when these ideas come in, they all bring in they come from a very different angle. And for developing a successful use case, it is important that we shed light onto not only one of the angle, but all the 3 of them. So during the ideation phase, which is in our case, phase 0 and phase 1, we make sure the team has all the necessary experts and the different perspectives into it. So we do a lot of matchmaking and connecting different community members. So once the team is built and they have a good idea of their use case, they can move on to a proof of concept phase, where they start with phase 2. Phase 2 is probably the most crucial phase of every use case. This is when we make sure that the work is a solid problem and is not supporting the hype. So during that phase, the teams with the different expertise, they will sit together and make sure to narrow down a problem that contributes to a sustainable development goals. That is also mapping onto a quantum computation on a computational problem, and that this quantum computing, this computational problem has a quantum computing solution which can be benchmarked against a solution of a state-of-the-art classical computer that has the potential to be more advantaged to be run on a quantum computer. After phase 2, the teams have produced a proposal, and we share these proposals with impact experts, but also computational experts. They get to see it in like a panel, and together with these panels, we ensure that the use cases, they fulfill all these requirements, which are very challenging to fulfill. So if they fulfill all these requirements, they get into phase 3, where they are being paired with a quantum, where they put in their use cases onto a quantum simulator. So we pair the teams with high performance computing providers. And if it makes sense to these implementations on simulators, if they make sense, then the teams get to implement their use cases on actual quantum processors on QPU in phase 4, where OQI again works as a connector, and we connect them with QPU providers. So it's a very linear process being showed here. In fact, it's not. It's a continuous transformation and improvement, and finding use cases that work for SDGs. It's yes, we always need ambitious experts working on these. And one of the experts that has been working on this is Pavel. We have joined this journey together on finding quantum computing use cases for the SDGs, and the use case on last mile delivery, I think, shows very well how this can be challenging. So Pavel, together with his non-profit organization, the Quantum AI Foundation, they have joined forces with the Technical University in Delft, Yale University, and Cogit, also from Poland. And they worked on a use case that improves how food is delivered in a context where you need to provide food, together with the World Food Program, for example. Now, during a conversation, so they wanted to improve the efficiency and making sure that this last mile delivery happens efficiently. Now, together with the World Food Program, we had a very good conversation, and the World Food Program was like, so our actual challenge is not that we need to improve our efficiency. Our actual challenge is that we don't have cooling chains all the way. Our actual challenge is that we don't have reliable transportation. So sometimes you need to wait half an hour to have the food being delivered. And so that was, we found this out together with collaborating. And then I think this is a very good use case that then shows what OQI does and why we need so many good experts. But it was maybe not yet ready to be implemented on a quantum processor, because the problem owners were like, this is not really a problem from us. So yes, but another example of a use case I brought today with is one on water leak detection. So this is from a team from Reply and Q-Clavis. They're both French and Belgian companies. And they pair with Pascal, which is a French quantum computing provider. They work with neutral atoms. And together with the UN agency, UN Habitat, they work on water leak detection, or in particular, if you're in an urban environment, you have water networks, and many of these water networks, from the source until actually you can get it out of the tap, around 50% of the water is lost. The team now tries to optimize, looking at these water networks, the placement of the sensors for leaks with a quantum computing algorithm. And so they hope to have better placements of sensors, of leak sensors, and with that a faster detection of leaks, and then making sure the leaks disappear to have better, less water losses in the system. And now, again, here comes in very handy that we work together with, that we are hosted at CERN, and we have worked together here with CERN to get a database and the CERN water network as a first place for implementation. So this team currently works with the CERN water management system as an initial small scale proof of concept before it can goes into larger cities. Yes, so if you're curious about reading more from our different use cases, we publish every year a white paper. Pavel's use cases on the 2024 edition. Have a look at both of them. Exactly. So that's the OQI pillar on applications. The second pillar works on providing access. So at OQI, we want to ensure global and equitable access to quantum computing. And we do this with collaborating with industry partners that actually develop quantum computers. So there are big tech companies like Microsoft, but also smaller quantum computing startups like Quera, I mentioned Pascal, or Planck, just to name a few of them. And thanks to these industry partners, we can then, when we develop use cases or when we make educational events, which I will talk later about, we can ensure that all of the users have access to quantum computing. The third pillar OQI works on is on capacity building and education. So promoting a global access to quantum computing comes with ensuring that everyone has capacities to participate in that. And at OQI, we host the Educational Consortium with participants from academia and industry. They bring in the expertise on quantum, but also on SDGs and on diplomacy. And yeah, Pavel is smiling again because again, he's with his Institute of Q World, he's participating in the Educational Consortium. And they are exactly providing and developing tools on quantum computing. We also help and organize hackathons on quantum computing all over the world. We developed the hackathon in a box, and that sort of, it works with the train the trainer principle, such that we can increase the impact these hackathons have, and we can have more hackathons all around the world. And we also want to advance the capacity of diplomats and policymakers on quantum computing questions. And we achieved that with playing a serious game. And in that serious game, we sent the diplomats and policymakers into the year 2035. In 2035, we say large-scale quantum computing has become available, but it's too expensive for the general use. So policymakers, they need to find geopolitical implications of quantum computing as an emerging technology. And last but not least, this year is the International Year of Quantum, and we are very proud to be partners of them, and we can contribute to their global event calendar. As mentioned before, we have a lot of entities that provide to our educational repository, and they provide materials, and you can find it on our website. This repository allows everyone around the world to learn about quantum computing and hopefully contribute to the development of it. Now to the fourth pillar of the OQI, which is on diplomacy. So from the very beginning on, OQI has been holding diplomatic dialogue on quantum computing. So we're very lucky. We're located in Geneva, and we can use a lot of these inputs from international UN organizations, but also the private sector and academia. And together we work on a common understanding of multilateral governance topics that are most relevant to quantum computing. And one way this happens, a very fundamental way, is the OQI Advisory Committee, which consists of around 34 members from both industry, academia, diplomacy, and education. And all together, we get their strategic input. So if you're curious, and now I need to turn on the light again. If you're curious to hear more about quantum diplomacy, we have published a report on an intelligence report on diplomacy, and we publish this every year. This year it has in particular 4 deep dives, one on the digital divide, one on the future of labor, one on global security, and one, what I've already explained to you a bit, our framework we developed for Sustainable Development Goals applications. And last but not least, I come to the last point, and I'm sure I have mentioned it now a couple of times. OQI is a collaborative platform, and it only works thanks to its community and all the contribution we get from it. And to ensure that quantum computing is developed in a way that benefits all of humanity and our planet, it is crucial to have a diverse community. We need to make sure different perspectives on quantum computing, but also on challenges that we face today, are heard and brought onto the table. Only if all voices are heard and equitable represented, we can achieve the OQI's ambitious goal. And with that, and before I close then also and hand over back to Pavel, I would like to invite you to connect with us. So you can find out more how to get involved on our website. There's a form you can file to become an OQI friend. And if you have direct ideas or of how to potentially collaborate, you can, of course, reach me on the alumni platform from CERN and connect with me there. And yes, with that, thank you very much for your attention, and I give back to Pavel.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for the great presentation. Okay, and it's time for questions to Alex. I can see the first question from Dr. Marcus Haverkamp. The question is, are all the details like quantum codes of the different projects included in the project repositories and publicly available? I believe that Marcus is asking about the use cases, the codes of the use cases. Is that correct, Marcus? Perhaps you can clarify if yes.
At the moment, we have the white papers published. We're currently at the stage where we have not yet reached, because our use cases development, that's like 1.5 years. So it takes some time to actually develop a proof of concept. But once this is done, you should find the code and possible data to the use cases on our GitHub repository, all in the sense of we actually want to provide open science. Yes, all that's not IP protected, but that's the goal, yes.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Alex. So in the meanwhile, I can ask a question, Alex, if you don't mind. So you've told us about the 4 pillars of OQI, and this is great. Does OQI already have some plans for expanding its operations, like introducing some new pillars, new projects, new activities in the next few years, let's say?
Yes, thanks, Paul, for that question. And I think a very important question. So at this point, we are right now, we start, because as I mentioned, we're going on to the pilot phase until the end of next year. But we're currently thinking on what we're going to do beyond 2026. So from our, we have a lot of experts thinking about how can OQI ensure impact, and what it means and how to expand. But it would be too early at this point to mention anything, as this is all very much in the making at the moment.
Okay, all right. So we'll see what the future will bring. So it's not easy to predict, and I believe that we all will need to adapt our activities to the development of quantum technologies as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Do we have some other questions to Alex?
Nadine has raised her hand, I can see in the chat.
Yes, Nadine, please.
Hi, first of all, amazing work at the OQI. I've been engaged and looking at the website for over a year, and I especially recommend the white paper about the use cases to everyone. And my question would be, who is still missing in the discussions? Who should definitely take part, and or maybe from the other the perspective, who is not actively taking part?
Okay, thanks very much for that question, and also for looking at our white paper. It's always good to know that like it is well received after you put so many hours into it. Thanks very much. Yeah, so who misses? So I couldn't say someone misses at the table, but I can say it is a continuous challenge to make sure that every voice is integrated in the discussion, right? When we work on, for example, use cases, we can't but face a digital divide, right? There are places where quantum computing is much further than in other places, and it is, and that's why we have this like 3 pillar 4 pillars to make sure that everybody gets heard. But it's an ongoing challenge.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you face the diverse opinions from the scientists, specifically physicists and the ethicists?
Yes, I think so. And I would say it's the second biggest challenge, probably, making sure that, of course, they all speak a bit different languages. Scientists have different perspectives. Policymakers have different perspectives. Domain experts have different perspectives and different language. And it's an ongoing work of the whole OQI team to make sure that they understand each other in their different language and perspectives they talk to.
Have any recommendations on how to facilitate that?
I think just stating that is important, stating that everybody has a different background, and making sure that you explain both parties ahead of the time before going into these conversations what is necessary and what's the goal to get out of that conversation. Yes, I mean, maybe Pavel, you remember when you were talking to the World Food Program, right? Like what did you think helped you to ensure that you were talking the same language as the experts there?
Yeah, so indeed, I can say that it was challenging because people from the World Food Program are experts, of course, but in another domain, right? So they are not experts in quantum computing, and actually we learned a lot from that, and they verified our initial idea on the use case. So later we had to make a pivot of our initial idea a bit. So later we also started talking to some other stakeholders, like the Cogit company that later became a partner of our project. So Alex, you also told about them. So it was very important for us to explore. And it turned out that in general, this problem and the use case that we initially wanted to work on and focus on was quite challenging from both technical perspective, but also from this business or social perspective. So indeed, it's important to talk to people with different backgrounds, different domains, who could give you good feedback. And explore as a researcher, as a scientist, just explore, learn, draw conclusions, and reiterate, and try to develop something even better based on the feedback. I see that Marcus would like to say something, ask a question probably, and I can also see a question from Jorge. So. But Marcus, maybe you can ask first, okay?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, are people allowed to suggest topics that can be used, or projects for quantum computing? And would you be open to, let's say, use these topics in order to build like a prototype for like a startup company and use a project to start a company from that?
Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly what we're relying on within OQI, right? We're relying on people coming to us with great ideas and inspiration to work on quantum computing use cases. Once we work through all the phases I've explained before, right? After phase 4, we have this proof of concept. It is a question: how do you ensure continuous impact? How can you actually, what happens with the use case, and how can you make sure this stays relevant? And I think we are very open, and we're still in this explorative stage where we see how can this happen? How can you ensure long-term impact? And I do think funding a startup which is, it will not be together with OQI, but as a solution as a follow-up from the OQI, can be a very valid opportunity and option. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how long do these projects run? So what is the duration of a project?
It's usually 1.5 years, starting from ideation to a full proof of concept.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus. And now I will read the question that Jorge posted on the chat. Many thanks for the talk. What kind of contributions does OQI expect from startups in order to become a member of the community? I'm asking as an early stage business owner.
So thanks for that question, Jorge. I think you can become a friend of the OQI, and there you just need to be interested in what OQI does. For becoming a member, we usually agree on that you contribute to one of the activities we're doing, being it in developing a use case, working in the educational consortium, providing quantum computing access, high performance computing access, these kind of contributions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Thank you, Alex, for the answer, and thanks, Jorge, for asking. Do we have more questions to Alex? Actually, I have one more, but I will wait. Okay, there is a question from Jason. As an already signed up friend of the OQI, are there any planned in-person events that I may be able to attend? This might help me understand how best to contribute.
In-person event we currently don't have planned. There will be the Chester Summit again, which just happened now in October, and will happen again in 2026. Of course, there's always the hackathons and where they happen. But I think if you like to understand how to contribute, it's best just to reach out or have a look at our website and see where you can contribute. And I'm also happy to explain further in offline.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Jason. All right. Do we have more questions to Alex?
I have another question concerning the quantum education part, particularly if you have experience reports on using the quantum diplomacy game at universities.
It has been played at universities or at conferences as well. Yes. It always depends on the players you have, of course. So it was played now at the Chester Summit, which happened here at the Science Gateway in CERN. There it was more the diplomats, but it also has been played at more physics or quantum computing conferences.
I can ask one more question, maybe the last one. So I'm wondering if you have had a chance to evaluate the OQI activities and all these 4 pillars, or the activities that you have organized so far, in terms of how successful they are, or they were, for how impactful in terms of the positive impact, or based on the feedback that you receive from people. So I'm just wondering if there are already some conclusions from the past activities that you could share with us, and maybe also some recommendations from OQI to the whole quantum community, and maybe to other organizations.
Yes, so I think this is a continuous process where you keep on evaluating, but also the big evaluation will happen soon. So I can't yet share any of that, what will happen there. What I can do is share a bit from my own experience on working with the use cases together. And what I've seen is that really, I might be repeating myself here, but only if you have the different perspectives on the use cases, they become very strong. So if you have this talk with UN organizations, and if you have discussions with quantum computing experts, like domain experts, and I guess my advice to the quantum computing community would just be to keep collaborating, because I think that's what is most useful to have, to how you ensure to have limited resources best used.
It's a great and beautiful message to all of us to collaborate even more. I believe, and this is also what I can see, and I can tell from my experience as the chairperson of the board of QWORD, where we also have multiple local groups, the so-called Q cousins in different countries, and we are able to organize many educational events and support OQI. For example, we organize some workshops to prepare the participants of the hackathons, thanks to this international collaboration. So this is very important indeed.
Yes, and right, like the collaboration we have with Q World has brought us so many benefits already. Yeah, indeed.
Alex, on behalf of all the participants, I would like to thank you once again for this great talk, presentation, and answering all the questions. So I believe that it was quite interesting and fruitful discussion, and we've learned a lot. I also like to thank all the participants for your attention, first of all, and for asking questions, contributing to this interesting discussion. So I hope that you enjoyed. And with this, I would like to give the floor and Zoom back to Rachel.
Great, thank you so much. So once again, we've had a really fascinating edition of News from the Lab. So a huge thank you to Alex, to Pavel, and also my super team, Elena and Simona, for organizing the event. And then also thanks to all of you for joining and participating so actively.